This is Najma Minhas with Global Village Space. Recently, we've heard a lot about the contribution that the construction sector can help towards reviving the Pakistani economy. Indeed, it was one of the first sectors that was given the go-ahead to open after last year's corona lockdown. I'm joined today by the CEO of Engro Polymer, Mr. Jahangir Piracha. Engro Polymers in the petrochemical sector, it's a very nascent sector in Pakistan. For people like you and I, the average the products that we would recognize include sanitary pipes, plastic pipes in general, PVC windows. This is something I want to, among other things, I want to understand from Jahangir, what the company and what the sector can do towards achieving the country's 2025 export vision, which is $150 billion. Jahangir, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Najma. Pleasure to meet you.
Jahangir, I'd like to start off by saying congratulations on your great results that came out a couple of days ago. We've been in a corona pandemic for the past 1 year. We're in the midst of corona wave 4. You have a large workforce. How did you manage it?
I think initially it was a bit of a shock. We went into a lockdown. I mean, and especially in Karachi, the entire industry was shut down. So we were in a lockdown. But when the permission came through with the SOPs, we were one of the first ones to open up and very high level of compliance. Now, luckily for us, in a way, because we had a project going on at our site, and we had almost 400 Chinese, Okay. And so those guys were great role models also in a way for our workforce, because I mean that country has seen lots of issues at times. They were the first one affected by COVID, so they were the high level of awareness was there. Right. They started following SOPs. Those are a little difficult to kind of change behavior with, because nobody believed that this is such a serious issue. But obviously enforcement, some education helped, and Alhamdulillah, I must say that we were able to do a very large project, as well as run our operation during all this time. And we were then able to commission our new plant in March this year. And the problem was obviously getting some of the expats in also, because you need people to come in. And luckily we got a window in December when some of the Japanese experts were supposed to fly, and they flew in. And then the lockdowns came in, and they were stuck in Pakistan with us. But
so that was good in a way. You managed to keep them here for longer.
Good in a way, yeah, I must say. Yeah, they were with us for. We hosted them for about four months.
Oh, fantastic! That's excellent. So we're lucky in a way that despite this corona pandemic, we're right in the midst of a construction boom. I walk out in Islamabad, and there's buildings left, right, and center. So tell me, because I don't really understand PVC, and a lot of people don't. So how is PVC used in the construction sector?
No, so this is a very good question. And I think when you normally people generally correlate construction with cement and steel, so those are the first ones which go in, so when you look at any building, the gray structure is coming up, and so some PVC is obviously used in the gray structure. You start with obviously the pipes, which go into your, the sewers are all made with the PVC pipes.
Okay.
So all your drainages are all PVC pipes. Your cold water pipes are all PVC. The green ones which you see are for the hot water. So those are non-PVC. There's another material, PPRC, which is used. Then entire electrical cabling which you have in your house, say, when you look at the cable, you don't see the metal, the copper. Right. You don't touch the copper. The material you're touching is PVC. So all your cable insulation is PVC. All the big cable manufacturers in Pakistan buy PVC from us, and then they obviously use it as an insulator on the cables. Okay. Then some of the modern houses which are coming up, and a lot of that is coming up, they're replacing wood with PVC windows. And it looks nice. It's a durable product. And now going forward, I see doors also. There are a lot of composite materials which are PVC is also used, and doors.
Is that because, for example, in case of doors, the wood doesn't expand and contract that we usually see in Pakistan?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, all sorts of issues which you have with the wooden windows, maintenance, and even construction, and obviously the sustainability part. You're cutting forest to make windows.
Right.
Here you're not doing that actually.
Okay.
And the last and the least, very recent product is your kitchens. The kitchens, are generally made with PVC because you have a lot of water there. And if you see, I mean, the general problem with the marine board or chip board is that, you know, you have that expansion. It doesn't, I mean, we all use our kitchens and we see what the problems we face. With this new material, it's a plastic. It looks like, it feels like wood. It looks like wood or any sort of material like chipboard, but it will not expand it. You could put water or anything, and or even heat. It has a much higher heat resistance.
Okay,
so a lot of new kitchens which will you see. So 70% of our production goes into construction. You know,
so with this whole
levels.
Pakistan scheme that the government has launched, and you know, last year they also gave the construction package. Have you seen an increase in demand for PVC?
Absolutely. You see, as I said, when you're digging the foundations, you'll not see us. It'll be cement and, you know, and the iron going in. But as the buildings are getting higher or the houses are getting built, then our material is going. So there's a lag normally. When you start construction, when you start building a building, there'll be a lag of, let's say, 6 months to 8 months. Okay. And we are now seeing that benefit substantially. That's reflecting in our sales. That's reflecting in our customers, you know, using more of, so electrical cables are, you know, everybody's expanding in this zone also.
So do you think
our
this
customers are expanding?
Your last half results were exceptionally high anyway, because the lagging.
I think our last, absolutely. I think we started seeing the benefits, I would say, March onward now.
Okay.
Really big, because winters, generally in Pakistan, construction is little, you know, especially northern Pakistan, where it gets colder, you have less, you know, construction. And I see really building, the momentum now building up. But what has happened that, like Pakistan, what has happened that everybody also, Najma, felt that this is one area where the government should really put money. So if you go to US, UK, Japan, Australia, mortgage rates would drop, you know, and there's a construction boom across the world.
Right.
And when that happens,
that's this bang for your buck, isn't it, as an industry, as an economy?
Yeah, so it's easy to open. I mean, it does not. I mean, you have people working on a construction site. It's not like a shopping mall, you know. I mean, right. If you're retail sector, you open, you have so many people going in. This is an area which is controlled. You construct, you put your SOPs, and you can still get your economy running. And it has a very, very, I mean, it creates jobs across a very wide industry, about 40 industries, what people tell me. And everybody did this. Okay. Everybody did this.
Across the world.
And so one downside of that for some of the people would be that the prices really went up. So steel prices went up, cement prices went up, and PVC prices also went up in the world.
So I wanted to ask you about this. I came across a number which basically showed that when you look at per GDP capita, PVC per GDP capita was significantly lower in Pakistan compared to even its neighboring countries. And South Asia in general is quite low. Why is that? Why don't we see such PVC usage when you've pointed out many advantages to us as consumers to using PVC?
If you look at generally plastics, because Pakistan unfortunately never developed an indigenous petrochemical industry, we don't have any petrochemical industry. In the plastics, we are the only one, I would say. And PET, I think Novatex is another one which does PET.
Right.
So there's very little investment which has gone in. What people have seen is that plastics per capita increases only when you have local production. You make the supply chain easy for your downstream converters. And then it really booms, you know. The other thing is that plastics have so many uses that Pakistan does not make lots of plastic base. So let me give you an example. When you buy an air conditioner, you're buying plastic also. When you're buying a car, you're buying lots of plastic with it also. There's lots of plastic in it. You know? So the point is that when you don't make such products in a country, or there's less demand for this, or your white goods products, you know, fridges and others. So there's a lot of plastic which goes into multiple products which we make. You don't have to buy plastic like in a kilo of plastic. It's going to be as a product. You know? And that's what I've been telling the government also, that when Korea exports plastic, it is as an air conditioner,
right,
or a mobile phone. Right. Nobody's selling you plastic resin. You know, I mean, people are selling it as part of a product. And because we don't have as much usage, we are at a very basic level where you're making pipes and, you know, cables and maybe doors. You're not making high value products with plastic. And that's why our per capita.
What do you need? Why to make these high value products? I mean, is it the fact that the government isn't there boosting the right sectors or giving the right policies? Or is it because the producers are making enough profit on the low value products that you don't need to move high end? What is the reason that's keeping you in the low end?
Well, I think government is doing its bit, I must say. I mean, two policies have come in very recently. One was this automotive policy where lots of new cars have come. Now, when their parts are going to, so lots of plastic parts will actually be used in these cars, and they will give an impetus to increase in plastic consumption in per capita. Similarly, I think you've just done a mobile phone policy has come.
Yes.
Again, mobile phone has parts which are made with plastic. So I think bits and pieces we are doing quite a bit generally, but we don't have the scale. I mean, we don't make million cars, you know. So the plastic consumption will be, or we don't make a million air conditioners. So when we start, scaling up all of our industry, which is happening, obviously there has to be a market for it. And your Pakistan as an economy is still in a very low GDP.
Okay, so when you say there has to be a market for it, what are you as a company doing to increase the awareness of these products for your end consumer?
So I think what we have taken a start in this direction, I must say. We have actually opened up a retail shop with our customers, where we are now highlighting that these are the possibilities or products which can be made with PVC. We are specifically obviously focusing on PVC, but can be for other plastics also.
Right.
So we have opened the first outlet in Karachi in defense. Idea is to open one in Islamabad also, and then obviously in Lahore.
Jahangir, I missed that. What is it the consumers will start seeing about the product when they go into the shop? The builders and so on.
So it's a big shop. It's a 4-story shop. We start with the basics, where we are telling you when you start building, you lay your pipes and electrical cables. Okay. As you go up in that building and the displays, you see garden chairs, you see your hoses, the garden hose. You go up in that building, you starting kitchens, you start seeing windows, you start seeing doors, and those are the kind of products and people are generally stunned that all of this is possible, and the best bit is that, in line with the government's policy of, safeguard our wood resources, because obviously if you're making lots of wood products, you're cutting your forest also down.
Right.
So there are alternates available. I mean, if you go to the Western world, all of this is used extensively, and they're not cutting their forest to build windows. And if you go to England, now England has a pretty, they make it with PVC, all the windows and everything. Right. They don't make it with wood.
What is PVC like on the pocket for the average consumer?
Yeah, so if you look at the overall value, I mean, with wood, it's a good replacement. Okay. So I look at 4 possible types of wood windows you can make. You can make it with the very straightforward iron windows. Okay. They don't look nice. They're not. You have then aluminum.
Yes.
And then the higher end is going to be the wood.
Okay.
So I would place PVC below wood in terms of cost.
Okay.
And with a fabulous aesthetics also, because you never get that aesthetics with aluminum or iron windows.
Right.
So yes, it's not the cheapest product, but it gives you feel of aesthetics which is as good as wood or even better at times, and with no maintenance after that.
Okay, yes, I agree 100%. Now, you've picked on a couple of times the word sustainability, and this is something that, is very close to the Prime Minister's heart. It's close to consumers' heart increasingly, along with innovation. How has that changed the nature of your business? Are you looking at things in a different way?
First of all, we are seeing all this climate change, So
right.
Some things you do which is going to have a global impact, So it's not localized. Pakistan might not be, but we are contributing. So our major endeavor is to reduce our carbon footprint. And that comes with all sorts of efficiency products, and you're bringing it down. Now, beyond a certain point, you can't reduce. So ideally, carbon reduction, absolute numbers reduction, and then offset projects. So for us to offset totally our carbon footprint, we need to plant about 15,000 acres of forest.
Okay, wow.
And we are in the process of signing an agreement with WWF and the Ministry of an MOU, a tri-party MOU would get signed, where we are looking at planting about 5,000 acres of mangroves.
Okay.
In the coastal areas of Karachi, obviously. The second bit will be about 10,000 acres, either in the mountains of Pakistan, could be GB, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, or KPK. So the government will, one of these provincial governments will give us pieces of land and we'll plant about 10,000 acres. And once we have that, we are carbon neutral, first of all. So that was the first one. Okay. Second one is then again very important. We live in Karachi, you live in Islamabad, you don't see water scarcity. So our idea is that we want to reduce water which we are taking as an industry, and we release that water for the citizens of Karachi. Okay. So we are actively now working on projects which are going to reduce our water intake, become as efficient on water usage, because water is a commodity which is very low value in Pakistan. Unfortunately, yes. We don't value water. But I think we realized that it's something, we are competing with 20 million people who live in Karachi, and where water is very expensive also.
Yes.
So idea is that we release that water, we can afford putting in efficiency and recycling projects, which will reduce our dependence on water, which can then be going to Karachi city.
Okay.
And last and the least is that that's not, plastic has a big problem of recycling. It's a big problem. I mean, and Pakistan does not have an organized recycling, endeavor. We are right now importing lots of waste from the world. Okay. Would you believe that when you bring in waste, people are paying you to bring this waste in? And so if you are New York City and you want to dispose your waste, you're going to pay somebody to pick it and take it somewhere. And a lot of this plastic which comes to Pakistan, actually somebody is paying to dump it in Pakistan. And so our idea is that and there is a lot of industry, and I'm not saying that we should stop it. Now, there's a lot of livelihoods which are, connected with that. So what our objective is that we have our own waste. Let's recycle that waste, which is flying all over and it's causing, make it productive, and let's not import it. Let's our recyclers use this waste.
Recycling.
Because nobody's tried to organize. Yeah. Recycling is the game. It has to be the game. Because
so how
otherwise,
do you see that when New York hasn't managed to do it?
No, so we are working on actually looking at 3 cities in Pakistan where we will do the pilots. Fortunately for us, single-use plastic is only 7% for us. Okay. Our product goes into not single-use. They go into pipes which are in the buildings for 30 years, and the cables which are in the buildings for 30 to 40 years. And when you demolish, there is a value. You can still recycle those pipes. Cut them. So our 7% is actually, only 7% is single use, which is some of the wrappers and other things, the packaging part is going. So our initial aim is at least to go and attack and reduce the single use part. So we want to recycle equivalent of, I would say the short term aim is to recycle at least this 7%.
Okay.
And then obviously when the industry sort of develops, this will go up here. So this is the vision around sustainability.
You're talking about the industry developing. One thing that Engro Polymer itself did was, since 2017, you've been undergoing an expansion plan. So how is that going? Where is it at this stage?
No, so we have commissioned in March, one part of the expansion got, came online. We had commercial operation started. And the second part of that expansion just finished in June. So now we are fully, our expansion is all done and dusted. And we are producing almost 300,000 tons can be produced in Pakistan. Okay. A world scale plant is about 400,000 tons. Now, economies of scales really kick in when you are 400,000 tons. And to be really very competitive and give the right product, you need to have economies of scale. In this, I mean, it's true for anything which we make in Pakistan. If somebody's making 2 million mobile phones and you start with 100,000, you never have economies of scale. Or the cars. I mean, in India, they're producing, let's say a typical factory produces 2 million cars, and we are producing maybe 50,000 cars. Economies of scale never kick in. So in petrochemical, in my industry, we are very near we are getting there almost. Another 100,000, we have the economies of scales, and you can compete with anybody in the world.
Why didn't you go for the 400,000 plant straight away?
we will start with exporting some part of it. Luckily, we are in Karachi, so export is a very easy. We've already started exporting. We did about $11.5 million worth of export in the first half. I see us finishing the year about $25 million. So export has also started. And the next project would be go to 100,000.
Okay.
Sorry?
And the local demand consumption, how much is that?
Our competition is imports. I mean, nobody's stopping anybody from importing. If it's cheaper from outside, they'll import. So we keep our pricing in a manner that, you know, our consumer get the best price.
So where does the IFC recently gave you $15 million? Where does that fit into this whole scheme of things? What are you going to do with that money?
So yes, very good question. IFC has been a partner with Engro Polymer and wider Engro in lots of our projects. So we have a very sustained, I think, 30-year-old relationship with. And they've always been very interested in anything which we do. They are the first one we talk to, or they come and talk to us that they have an interest. We're putting up a plant to produce hydrogen peroxide.
Okay.
Hydrogen peroxide is utilized for lots of industries other than making Pakistani women look blonde. That's another thing which it's used for. So I don't think so. I don't see too many blonde women in Karachi, Pakistan. So it's not being used that much, but it does get used for that also. So all the blonde women which you see have hydrogen peroxide applied, but it's used in textile processing. It is used as an antiseptic.
Whitewashed jeans is a better example.
Yeah, whitewash is another one. I mean, that one is also one of the. So it's used in textile processing, okay. And the food grade ones are used for all this Tetra Pak.
The milk pack, the milk packs,
and then some other uses.
Okay.
The milk pack and others.
Okay.
So antiseptic, it has a sort of treatment there, which they do. It's a good product. We have actually in our process we produce hydrogen as a as a side product. What we were doing, we were burning that hydrogen in our boilers and furnaces, which is not the best use of hydrogen. Ideally, you want to create into a value add product. So it's a value addition which we are bringing to hydrogen, which was getting
very
low utilization.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's about $37 million project, and I think 15 million is coming out as a debt from IFC.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about the petrochemical sector. We know that in developed countries it plays a really important part. What role do you see it playing in Pakistan, especially if we think in terms of the 2025 vision that the Prime Minister and the country has to reach exports around $150 billion?
No, so this is a very good question. I think I see Pakistan's petrochemical industry. So we are importing right now I think 3 billion worth of petrochemicals. And primarily, I feel that we as Engro Polymers right now are providing an import substitution of $160 million. That's a lot of money, which you're actually saving as a country if you were importing. And this is after, because we import some of our raw materials, so its net saving is $160 million. Now, ideally, we talked about it in the earlier part. I mean, government has a vision that things should happen and industry should develop. Now, government of Pakistan has been, and I think current government is in the same sort of frame of mind, that they have generally provided a policy to actually start. So people to invest, they need some sort of a longer view, how the government is going to deal with this sector. Now, be it the automotive policy, be it the mobile policy. Currently, it's in the news that they're working on the refinery policy.
Right.
If you really see, Pakistan does not have currently a
petrochemical policy.
There is no petrochemical policy for encouraging any or for if you want a sector, and if it had to develop without that policy, it would have developed by now. I mean, you've been around for so long. So it's not developing. So a policy intervention is definitely needed. We are currently with some of the large other people who have interest in this sector, trying to pitch this idea to the government is that the time has arrived for Pakistan. Because if we don't do it today, a typical project of petrochemical size is $1 billion type of project.
Okay.
And its developmental time from the idea to actual production could be 6 to 7 years. These are long gestation projects. Just designing takes 2 years, construction takes 4 years. So you need to start today for something which will come in 6 years later. Same is true for the refineries, they take 6 to 8 years. So policy need to come in. People need to have a view that this will not be changed. Now the track record of government of Pakistan all these years is super good on policies.
Okay.
One thing which we can be very sure that anything which has come as part of a policy, they have never ranged on it. They've followed through. Governments have changed, but I think we've got to, we talk lots of bad things about our government and everything, but one of the good things which people don't realize that there's been a very consistency if a policy is there. So that's what will give investors the confidence that looking at the track record of all the previous policies, and these are the big mega projects, so $1 billion plus that if the policy is in place, then no changes will come. What is promised today will stay for next 6, 7, 8 years.
What is the policy you want? I mean, is there 1 or 2 key features that you can share with us? What should this policy have?
Well, generally what we looked at is that we looked at other countries, what levers of policy they had. Okay. So if you look at, so I'm not even comparing, so people used to compare Pakistan and South Korea. I don't want to even make that comparison. That's a different word. So ideal places to compare now are places like Vietnam. Okay. Vietnam is probably the best where we can go and do the comparisons. Okay. Egypt is a great example because it's under IMF program also. So what they were able to achieve even under an IMF program. Typically, generally government assurance of water, gas, piece of land to put up a thing, availability of land in the right places are the first sort of levers you ask for. Second part of lever could be, ease of doing business. Certain policies make it very clear that, when you bring in an investment of this site, like you have done it for CPAC also, or some of these industrial parks which are getting developed,
Right.
So that would come. Some other financial incentives have been done. Well, Turkey actually was giving salary support for petrochemical industrial workers. Okay. I don't expect Pakistan that will happen. It becomes so controversial that will never happen. Yeah. Others are maybe some your income tax exemptions, like they're offering in the refinery thing, that they're offering a 20-year. No, when you say an income tax exemption, it is on your future earnings. You're not earning that money today.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so now looking just specifically at your company, where do you see your company going? Where's the focus going forward?
So our key focus, as I said, we want to be at a scale where we can be competitive. I think our mantra and our key thing with the government is that we should expand to a 400,000 ton. That's the next. That makes us globally competitive. You can't sort of run on the clutches of duty protections and government and everything. I don't want to operate in that world. But let me get that size. A lot of support is available. I don't think so we need anything from the government right now. Honestly, it is for us now to take the initiative and make it happen.
Right.
So government has done its bit. It has supported us till now through duty protections. Mm-hmm. It is getting us to a level where we are right there now, about to become a globally competitive size. Mm-hmm. And then I think we will compete. The market for different products is another area which we should work on. Mm-hmm. So the more PVC goes into the value add products and they're used in Pakistan. And in that direction, as I said, we are enhancing the consumer knowledge through some of these retail outlets which we are making, mm-hmm. social media, and also connecting PVC with sustainability also. Because I firmly believe that if it's a country which does not have any forest, we are not like North America or anywhere there's ample amount of wood. We should not be cutting forest for our basic uses if we can find an alternate. So, and it helps the climate change, the bigger agenda which we are facing as me and my children and
as a world.
Their children. So we need to really make the world a little better for them. And I think one of the key things would be, I think let's not destroy the country's forest cover for our materials which we have alternates with.
Jahangir, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you, and thank you.